The Shawshank Redemption, Hollywood's greatest box office illusion. October 1994. Walk into almost any movie theater across America, and the scene was exactly the same. Empty seats and pure silence. A new film had just hit the screens, bearing a title that ticket buyers could barely even pronounce, The Shawshank Redemption. It cost $25 million to make, yet its initial run pulled in a measly $16 million. Hollywood's top insiders immediately slapped a label on it, a certified box office disaster. No one in their right mind could have predicted that this slow 2.5-hour prison drama would one day rewrite cinema history. Today, 3 decades later, if you open IMDb, the world's largest movie database, you'll find legendary billion-dollar cult classics like The Godfather, The Dark Knight, Pulp Fiction, and Titanic all sitting beneath it. Crowned firmly at the #1 spot of all time is The Shawshank Redemption. This is the story of the greatest U-turn in Hollywood history. This is the story of how a box office flop became the definitive cinematic masterpiece. 1994 is often called the most brutal year in Hollywood history, but it's also revered as the greatest year in cinema. That's because the box office was dominated by 2 absolute juggernauts: Tom Hanks's Forrest Gump and Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction. Audiences were completely obsessed. It was right into the teeth of this storm that director Frank Darabont released a film based on a relatively obscure Stephen King short story. But the studio made 3 critical mistakes that effectively suffocated the movie on arrival. The first mistake was the name. The Shawshank Redemption was a linguistic puzzle for the average American moviegoer. Lead actor Morgan Freeman later laughed in an interview, recalling how people would come up to him and say, "Hey Morgan, I loved you in that new movie. What was it called? Shawshank? Sharkskin?" If the audience can't pronounce the title, they aren't buying the ticket. The second mistake was the marketing. The poster featured nothing more than a lone man standing in the pouring rain. Nobody could tell what the movie was actually about. The profound brotherhood inside the walls, the unbreakable spirit of hope, and the mastermind escape plan, all of it was completely hidden from the public eye. But then the universe forced a massive shift. America entered the golden age of home video rentals, spearheaded by giants like Blockbuster. Warner Brothers took a massive gamble and shipped 320,000 VHS tapes across the country. Away from the crowded theaters, when people started watching this movie in the intimacy of their own bedrooms, the true magic of Shawshank was finally unleashed. The bars of Shawshank Prison weren't just made of iron, they were a psychological disease. In the film, Red delivers a hauntingly accurate definition of this mental state. These walls are funny. First you hate them, then you get used to them. Enough time passes, you get so you depend on him. That's institutionalized. It describes a state of mental slavery where freedom itself becomes a terrifying punishment. And the ultimate symbol of this horrifying psychology wasn't a human being, it was a small black crow named Jake. Jake is found as a helpless chick by Brooks Hatlin, an elderly inmate who has spent 50 years behind bars. In classical literature, a crow represents death and darkness, but here the director flips the script. This bird becomes Brooks's only anchor to humanity. Bringing this small creature to the screen required rigorous animal additions, as wild crows panic under heavy camera lights. It took weeks to find a certified, calm crow that was perfectly comfortable nesting inside a costume pocket. The real challenge emerged during a pivotal scene where lead actor Tim Robbins enters the prison library. Director Frank Darabont refused to use quick cuts. He demanded a single master shot where Tim Robbins walks in, stops on a precise mark, and the crow squawks at that exact microsecond. But a crow isn't a robot. The takes were repeatedly ruined. That's when Tim Robbins pulled off an acting masterstroke. He meticulously analyzed the micro gap between the animal trainer's hand gesture and the crow's response, locking the rhythm into his mind like a musical beat. During the actual take, the moment the crow squawked, Robbins executed a seamless micro pause and adjusted the pitch of his voice so his dialogue slotted perfectly into the silence right after the bird's cry. By surrendering his acting to the timing of an animal, he delivered a flawless scene that left even Morgan Freeman speechless. When Andy Dufresne eventually breaks out of Shawshank, it catches the world completely off guard. But the truth is, the filmmakers left a trail of 10 hidden clues scattered across the first 20 minutes, practically screaming his escape plan. Clue number 1 was the rock hammer. When Red joked that it would take 600 years to tunnel through the walls with it, Andy simply smiled. He knew the mathematics of patience. Clue number 2 was the front page of the Bible. The warden tells Andy, "Salvation lies within," and Andy literally cut out the pages of that very Bible to hide his rock hammer. His salvation was quite literally within the book. Clue number 3 was the dust from his cell. Every single night Andy tunneled, and every single morning he hid the chalky debris in his pockets, subtly shaking it out into the prison yard during his morning walks. Clue number 4 was the visual deception on his wall. The posters of Hollywood starlets that grew larger over the years, masking a hole that was growing progressively wider. Clue number 5 was the chess pieces Andy carved by night, symbolizing how he was treating the warden and the guards as mere pawns while he played the king from the shadows. Clue number 6 was his name carved into the stone wall. He used the exact width of his name to measure the diameter of his tunnel. Clue number 7 occurred on the night of the escape. Andy swapped the warden's expensive black leather shoes into a shoebox, walking right past the guards wearing them, because no one ever looks down. Clue number 8 was his baggy suit, concealing the warden's clean clothes underneath his prison uniform. Clue number 9 was the historic thunderstorm, which Andy used to perfectly sync the strikes of his rock against the sewage pipe with the deafening cracks of thunder. And clue number 10 was the painting hanging directly over the warden's hidden safe, reading, "No Judgment Without Judgment Day." The brilliance of Shawshank isn't confined to its script. The physical toll the actors endured off-screen is staggering. For the iconic climax where Andy crawls through a 500-yard pipeline of absolute filth, the crew manufactured a sludge made of chocolate syrup and thick sauce. However, due to the reaction with the old metal pipes and industrial chemicals on location, the mixture became toxic within hours. Doctors warned that it could cause permanent blindness or severe infection, but Tim Robbins refused a body double, crawling through that toxic pipe for hours to secure the shot. Similarly, during the sequence where Andy and Red first meet in the prison yard, Red continuously catches a baseball. On screen, the conversation lasts a mere 5 minutes. But to capture that perfect, unbroken interaction, Morgan Freeman endured 9 straight hours of throwing and catching that heavy leather ball. By the next morning, his right shoulder was completely locked up in agonizing pain, yet he never let a single ounce of that discomfort show on his face. Furthermore, the film was shot on location at the Ohio State Reformatory, a real, abandoned prison shut down by the government for inhumane conditions. The atmosphere was so heavy and oppressive that the cast felt a genuine wave of depression. When Andy finally emerges from the pipe and breaks into the rain, the water was so freezing cold that Tim Robbins's body began to shut down. The bolt of lightning that flashes across the sky at that exact moment wasn't a visual effect. It was a spectacular, real-life gift from nature. Inside the walls of Shawshank, 2 philosophies clash. Red argues that hope is a dangerous delusion. Andy counters that hope is the only thing that keeps a man alive. It is here that Andy drops one of the greatest philosophical truth bombs in cinema history: get busy living or get busy dying. It forces a brutal choice: either actively find a reason to push forward, or surrender to a slow, psychological death. When Red is finally paroled, he follows Andy's instructions to a remote field in Buxton, tracking down a massive black oak tree. Underneath a specific piece of volcanic rock, he uncovers a hidden tin box. Inside there is money and a letter that reads, "Remember, Red. Hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things, and no good thing ever dies." Andy was calling him to Zihuatanejo, a tiny, idyllic town nestled on the Pacific coast of Mexico. A place, as Andy described, that has no memory. A place where a man can wash away his past and start completely fresh. And finally, the ultimate secret of the film. This immortal ending, where Andy and Red reunite on a sun-drenched Mexican beach and embrace, was never supposed to happen. Director Frank Darabont wanted to end the film exactly like Stephen King's book, with an open ending. The script originally closed with Red on the bus, simply hoping for a reunion, leaving the audience to wonder. But the film's producer, Liz Glotzer, staged a massive intervention. She argued that audiences had just endured 2.5 hours of a living hell with these inmates. They watched Brooks hang himself. She insisted that if the film denied them the salvation of seeing Andy and Red together, people would leave the theaters in a state of depression. Under her immense pressure, the beach scene was shot. Today, history proves her right. Without those final 2 minutes by the ocean, this movie would likely not be the #1 film in the world today. It remains the most deeply satisfying conclusion in the history of cinema. That is the definitive journey of the Shawshank Redemption. A film that died a quiet death at the box office, only to achieve immortality in the hearts of millions. It serves as a profound reminder that almost all of us are trapped in our own version of Shawshank, whether it's a soul-crushing job, a toxic environment, or the heavy chains of our own past. But it teaches us that if you possess absolute patience and an unyielding sense of hope, you can crawl through a river of filth and emerge on the shores of your own freedom. The choice is entirely yours: get busy living or get busy dying.